press the analytics.
Yeah.
I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won.
Yeah.
I hope my team they won.
Yeah. Man.
I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won.
Yeah.
I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They can press the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Welcome to episode 525 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora. In essence, all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. Sitting in for your host, Dr. Cavil, I am A.D. Drew, along with my co-host today. Y'all call him D2 HBCU football. His mama named him Kendrick Hooks. Sitting in today, Ken, how you doing today, man?
Well, I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing fine, my brother. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KCOH AM 1230 studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. Today is going to be a good one as we discuss the latest in HBCU news. And today we're gonna get into obviously our news and notes. We're gonna go over the SIAC Media Day and talk about the two media days that's coming up next week, the SWAC followed by the CIAA. Ken, my brother, man, what's been going on? You know, the one of the greatest historians I can say when it comes to HBCU athletics, you know, not just we if you follow him on Twitter, y'all, he's a good follow. He's a good read on Twitter, X, whatever the heck you want to call it, especially if you want to learn your Tuskegee history. Only to win in this HBCU, 715 victories strong. But I digress. And counting. But in addition to Tuskegee history, anything that has SIAC and other programs. So Ken, how's it going today, man?
Man, it's going good. Hey, it's almost football season again, so I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I could tell how excited you were when you had that live going on for almost 4 hours on Sunday. You know, got off the sports lab and listened to you guys chop it up for forever, man. Forever.
Yeah, I feel like it was a lot of people that had a lot on their chest, but you know, when you have 13 teams in the conference to try to talk about, it's a lot. There's a lot of storylines that go into that. So we try to be fair. You know, they tell me I'm biased for Tuskegee, but you know, for obvious reasons.
And you are. Hey, at least you had a 4-hour window to try to get all 13 teams in. Try to get 13 teams in an hour during media day. That's when that's a challenge right there, my brother.
I can only imagine. I watch y'all coverage of it, good coverage, and learned a lot. So, but hats off to you all.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And shout out to the boss man, Roy Evans, for coordinating and being the executive producer on that. Let's get into some of this news and notes. And speaking of our Division II institutions and HBCUs in the SIAC, 4 schools: Allen University, Edward Waters University, Emory and Henry University, and Westmont College will all become NCAA Division II members after successfully completing the provisional membership process. The Division II membership committee approved the division's newest members this week during its meeting in Indianapolis. The Division II membership will total 293 schools in 2024-2025. The Division II Management Council will review all membership decisions during its meetings July 22nd through 23rd. The changes will take effect September 1. And I don't know how many of you guys got to see Edward Waters had a big video presentation today. So if you didn't get to see that, go out on YouTube and see if you can find that also. So Kendrick, 2 of the 4 teams that made it to Division II status announced today were not only HBCUs, but from the same HBCU conference. Talk about the significance of that, my brother.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start and say that when you think about Edward Waters, it's good to have him back. And Allen as well. It's just a hats off to their leadership. Hats off to the vision of those people to see the purpose or the benefits of athletics for both of their institutions. I think that's also huge because we're in this climate where things are moving. And as you know, the SIAC, we've had some teams to come, some teams to go. And so it's always good to see teams come back and be able to be in the conference. And especially teams like Edward Waters and Allen, they just didn't come in to just be sleepover teams. They came on, they actually have aided and added, I think, into the quality of the conference.
Okay, talk about Edward Waters peaking too early. They've won 2 championships in the SIAC during their provisional time, winning the softball championship 2 years ago, winning baseball last year, unable to compete in the NCAAs because with those championships because they were in that transitional periods. And well, you say it's football season. Let's talk about the moves those 2 football teams made last year. Allen was mathematically still in the race on the last day of the season. Edward Waters did not get eliminated until 2 Saturdays left in the regular season last year. So, we talk about some teams with some programs on the rise.
Yeah, most definitely. One of the things that I tweeted out this week was about Edward Waters because just historically speaking, you look at those wins that Edward Waters pulled off. They pulled off 2 really historic wins. Like they knock off Tuskegee at homecoming. Now that's bitter. That's a bitter drink for me. But
last time I talked to President Faison, he's still rubbing that in our face.
Oh, absolutely. But when you look at those wins, I think it's just a testament of what they've put into the program. I think we all remember a few years back them getting blanked by 60-some points to Jackson State on national TV. In the round of that program, they bring in Coach Morgan. You look at that staff top to bottom. I mean, it's quality coaches. Brian Jenkins, and I think a lot of people, this gets lost on a lot of people. Brian Jenkins, who led Bethune-Cookman to those titles, he's on that staff as an offensive coordinator. And I mean, and you see his offensive mind with some of the stuff that they run. And so they're in Florida. It's only a matter of time. Really, you look at the blueprint of West Florida. When West Florida started a football team and went into the GSC, it wasn't long before they were running the GSC. And so you kind of see Edward Waters kind of on that similar trajectory.
Yeah, and if they are, that's a scary thing. And I can't let you just talk about Tuskegee when it comes to Edward Waters and the fact that they knocked off Tuskegee last year on homecoming. But they also beat another blue blood in the conference, beating Albany State last year before they beat Tuskegee. So
what the after? Because I thought it was following weeks. I think they beat Tuskegee that week, and then
who cares? Who cares? two blue bloods took 2 L's to teams they were not expected to take L's to. So when
and a play away from beating the third one in Fort Valley.
Exactly, and that's what that was my point that I was getting to. When you look at the fact that, and we're supposed to say this for the SIAC portion,
Okay.
and we'll get back into it for the SIAC portion. But since we own it, let's go ahead and finish this off. When you beat 2 of the 3 blue bloods of this conference and come within a play, a touchdown of beating the 3rd blue blood in this conference, what is that saying about that program, that institution, President Faison, Dr. Rich, and everything that they're putting into that program, Ken?
Yeah, you know, I mean, Dr. Faison is one of the most, I mean, what other institution can you go to and you find a president that tweets, and just right there, like Dr. Faison. And I think there's a picture of him on the field after that homecoming win at Tuskegee. And there was a lot of discussion behind it. But in my opinion, what I saw was a president that had a vision that, come on, if we're being honest, we know there's naysayers. There are people like, why they coming? I think what we saw was a president that had put so much into it, had a vision, surround himself with the right people, and just to finally get that sigh of relief, like, hey, I told y'all we can do it. And even today with them announcing, it's like the struggles of moving a transition, transitioning to another conference, transitioning to another division. That takes a lot. And even on the show Sunday, he talked about how, it was a learning curve for them. And so just to see all that hard work come to fruition for them, even though, beating Tuskegee or Albany State and Fort Valley, I'm really happy for that program right now.
Yeah, and talk about a president who's down to earth. I mean, when the president of the university not only follows podcasts and lives like the one that you did, podcasts like ours here on the Black College Sports Network, but even chimes in, comments, and is not afraid to come on and to speak on these podcasts. And the reason why those pictures that you saw, Ken, was so emotional for Dr. Faison. He's an Albany State alum. So the picture you saw him after the Albany State victory, obviously the emotion of that. And he's a former vice president at Tuskegee University. So once again, the emotion of beating the places where you got your roots at, is absolutely powerful. All right, Ken, you got a story that you want to bring. What's the news of the day coming from the Kendrick Hooks desk?
And I would say shouts out to Allen too, because they've made that jump. And even though now their coach that kind of brought their program back, he is taking on another challenge in itself. Just hats off to them. And they have another guy who has some Tuskegee roots up there in AD Cox. So hey, this Tuskegee influence is reaching around the conference. Okay. So if you want to be successful, I'm just saying, if you want to be successful, you might need to bring some Tuskegee people on board. But
and who does AD Cox go and hire for his next football coach?
Tuskegee grad and Cedric Pearl. So I'm just saying. We're just saying now. We're not trying to be biased and trying to just make the. Hey, I know Dr. Cavil probably said, "Hey, y'all, there was a real Tuskegee a lot up here," but I'm just saying now, the proof is in the pudding.
And we promise y'all we're going to get into other institutions later on during the show. Matter of fact, let's take our first break right now, Kendrick, and let's pivot away from Tuskegee before everybody talk about this TU bias that we have going on this show. You are watching Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Kendrick, AD, we'll be back in just a moment.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentjax.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Cavil's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Cavil's Voice, Cavil's Voice, CavilsVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Welcome back to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. AD Drew here along with Kendrick Hooks. Let's give it. Monroe, Louisiana, Edwin Moore, Karen Griffin, Emmett Jones, G Boone checking in. And I would be remiss if I did not say all prayers for those down in the Houston, Galveston area still dealing with the loss of power. One of the reasons why you don't see the Houston-based people on this show here today, us filling in for them. Dr. Cavil, I know he extended his travel from the SIAC Media Day. Charles Bishop, I talked to him. He's dealing with people coming out, insurance adjusters, people like that. G-Bone, it looks like he's still waiting on power to come back on. Mike's doing fine. He's still there recovering. So for all those in the Houston area, our prayers go up to you guys. Coach Ferrazzi out there checking us out. Appreciate you, Coach. Emma Price, Silas and Edward McMorris, Tony Franklin. Let's see. We have Carol Kellum here. Karen Griffin. I know Edward Waters beat Tuskegee at our homecoming. I believe they beat Albany State at home in Jacksonville. Do not remember if it was their homecoming when they beat them or not, but I do know the Albany State victory did occur in Jacksonville. Chuck Hunt checks in. Dr. Faison is my kind of college president and supportive of not only academia but sports as well. He's not snobbish acting. Great point there. Brian, my fellow Rattler checks in from my other half of my education. The Tuskegee tree is large and invasive. Emmett Jones, Tuskegee is a tree of many branches. Thank you, Karen. No more comments needed. This the mic drop right here.
That's all we needed.
That's all we need right there. So, Ken, as we get into it, said you had a chance to watch our coverage of SIAC Media Day. what were your impressions of Media Day? And let's be real. Everybody has optimism during July. Everybody has visions of a championship in July. Everybody has visions of going 8-0 in conference in July. And then first weekend in September, reality starts setting in for some of our programs. So with all that being said, tell us about your impressions of what you saw in SIAC Media Day.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I really was looking for, I was curious to see who the attendees were, and one of my shocks was when I saw that Brandon Marshall was coming back for Fort Valley. They catapulted to the top of my list. We saw some people leave out with the portal with them. But I felt like the bones of that team is good. So you got Kelvin Durham coming back.
Stop right there. Stop right there. Stop right there. Did it surprise you that Kelvin Durham was not first team nor second team quarterback?
Yes, that was one of my tweets. Kelvin Durham, in my opinion, and not take anything away from David Wright. Okay, Kelvin Durham has just been more consistent in my book. When you talk about quarterback play, and so I was okay with them giving David Wright, or David Wright earning the offensive player of the year and first team, since they gave him offensive player of the year. But those 17 interceptions stick out to me. And then with Kelvin, for him not to make the second team, and don't get me wrong, I think Jayton from Savannah State is good. Savannah State is going to be one of those teams I think sneaks up on not even really sneaks up, because if you watched them last year, they were tough to beat last year. But I just don't know how Kelvin Durham doesn't out that blew my mind. So I'm just not sure.
Biggest shocker: Kelvin Durham not being on first or second team, or David Wright not being the preseason offensive player of the year this year after winning player of the year last season.
I'm gonna put it on the new SIDs and the new coaches. I'm gonna put it on them. I think they might be the reason. Maybe they haven't watched enough films. I'm just gonna put it on them. That's how it got switched up. So that's just my take on it. Maybe it's the and the new ADs, because we got a couple new ADs in the conference. So I think it was them.
That was the biggest shocker. I don't think I have ever seen when a reigning player of the year returns and does not come in preseason as the man once again. So
yeah,
you talked about giving a player some extra motivation, chip on his shoulder. Was the move 3 hours west that impactful where he lost his status?
I mean, if anything, it might be an upgrade on his offensive line. So I don't know. I said last season that I feel like he needed almost a second to a half a second longer in the pocket. And I think some of those bigger bodies that Clark had up front on the offensive side, I'm looking for him to really toss it around this season.
If he could keep those interceptions, cut those interceptions in half to about 8-9 interceptions, and maintain the same touchdowns, Clark's going to be a real formidable opponent in the SIAC. Anything else stuck out there to you, Ken?
I want to say Kentucky State. Now, I'm one of those ones that a few years ago, when Kentucky State first started going through their situation and their state legislature, started to make comments about them, I constantly tweeted about him. I came on podcasts, tell people, hey, keep a lookout for Kentucky State. And then when Coach Felton got there, and just the style that he kind of came through, and then when I read body language a lot. His body language was like, yeah, y'all just wait. He had a little swagger to him in all his interviews, and sitting up there like, Y'all just don't know what's coming. And then I think with Block Sports, he said that he signed 40 kids. And I was like, wait, they've kept that on the wraps because I was reading the signing classes, and I keep a lookout for the type of kids that they sign. And so when he said that, I went and started doing some digging, and he has put some pieces together. He wasn't lying about the physique of their defensive back compared to what he looked like last year. So they put in some work up there in Frankfurt.
Yeah. Trying to pull up the predicted order of finish there for the SIAC, but I don't think to anyone's surprise, Albany State was picked 1, Fort Valley picked 2. And really, it was a blue blood prediction. Fort Valley 2, Miles 3, Tuskegee 4, and let's just stop at those 4 right there. Okay. The order that those 4 finish is probably going to come down to the last game of the year, just like it does every year between those group of teams right there.
Yeah, I'm one of the ones that believe probably 1 through 5 are interchangeable in that pick. I will say that I'm gonna have to when it comes down to who's gonna finish, I think the logical explanation was gonna be Albany State. Just because they were the run up last year and they have a lot of continuity coming back. Now
Benedict lost a lot due to the coaching change and the transfers.
Yeah, and I know when I put my own personal list out, I dropped Benedict all the way down to 10. Now the Benedict faithful, they kind of ran through me and said, "Hey, nobody has unseated us yet," and I'm like, "Yeah, your seat is up the road at South Carolina State." But and that's no knock because I think he signed a good class, right? But I think we've seen this too many times where even when it comes down to Clark, I'm looking for Clark to be stronger at the back end of the season. Like I'm looking for Benedict to be stronger on the back end of the season. You talk about when Ruffin came to Miles, right? Came from Miles to Tuskegee. That was a SIC championship runner-up team. And he bought with him guys to Tuskegee that had, decent, pretty good talent there. It took them 3-4 games in to the West Alabama game, really, for them to like, okay, wait a minute, to gel and play together. So you started talking about Clark, bringing him bringing his team from Allen with Keaton. It's going to take them a while. So the same thing with Benedict. Yeah, they have a lot of transfers that's going to come in. But it's going to take them a minute to gel. And I think it'll be unfair to the coaching staff to just hold them, to such a standard right off the rip and just get a man an opportunity. I mean, he's following probably one of the greatest coaches in Benedict history. When history,
one of the
I mean, he's gonna be considered the best, right? Okay. But I also want to be honest and say and give Mike White his flowers because there was a foundation when Coach Berry got there, because I think that was like their first 7-8 win season with Mike White. The year before he had the bad season, but when Berry got there, Phoenix was there. It's like there was talent there that Mike White had actually put in place at Benedict. That's how he's able to come down to a Miles in his first year and beat Miles on their homecoming, which was the reigning SIC champion. So, it's just one of those things where I think Berry walked into a good situation. Now, I don't think Dixon's situation is as good as the one that Berry walked into because Berry took some luggage with him to South Carolina State. So,
speaking of Miles, speaking of Benedict, will we be making the Miles comparison with Benedict this year after Ruffin left and came to Tuskegee, when Miles went 1-9 the following year under first year head coach Sam Shade? But talk about a team who went from rags to riches real quick. Miles made probably the biggest turnaround in the conference last year, playing on the last day of the year for a chance at the SIAC championship game.
Yeah, so and not to try to ruffle any of Miles College's fan base there, but when these other schools
we
start talking about
Tuskegee, we can ruffle.
If they started talking about coaches, I'm not really sure that why Sam Shade's name is not in these discussions. If you know what he did, I mean, he took that team, and even though they were 1-9, and he articulates this so well. He plays Alabama State his first game when he got to Miles. They get beat up real bad in that game, and he just hobbled through the season. But Benedict, even that first year, Benedict struggled to get past Miles that first year of Sam Shade, and Benedict was blowing everybody out. But they hobbled to beat Miles, and I saw that team, and then they come to Tuskegee that first year. This is rough in first year at Tuskegee. I mean, it takes us 2 overtimes to beat him. I left
defense was not the problem that first year with Miles.
No, not at all. It was their offense. Their offense could not. I mean, if their offense could have got 3 more first downs a game. And
if I remember correctly, they went through 4 quarterbacks at one point in time that season, with number 1, number 2, and number 3 being injured in one game. I don't remember what game that was. They were on like their 4th string quarterback, who's normally your scout team quarterback or somebody who's usually playing wide receiver in practice, having to get up under center just because he played quarterback in high school. So they were on like their 4th, maybe even their 5th quarterback at one point in time during that first season with Sam Shade. But defensively, I mean, they gave teams hell during that first year. And then obviously signing Klein Peter last year, coming in, grad student, along with the other, I believe they had about 8 or 9 graduates last year. They were able to turn that program around real fast.
Really quick. And I think they're a handful this year. If I'm being honest, when I looked at last season, and this is no knock to Albany State, when Miles went to Albany, I don't know what happened to Miles. I was really looking forward to that Miles Benedict rematch, because I went down to the Miles Benedict game early in the season. Miles goes up on Benedict with like a minute and a half left to go in the game. And then Benedict, being the championship team that they drive right back down the field and they take the lead. And so I was really looking forward. And some of the Benedict players were telling Miles, hey, see y'all in Atlanta. And that's what I thought. And then I didn't even look at the score because in my mind, this is why the game is played on the field. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, they could go down and handle business against Albany State. And then I think one of the guys, it might have been Flicks or somebody, he sends me the score. And I'm like, what is going on with Miles down in Albany, Georgia? I mean,
I was there.
Man.
I was there, Ken. Klein Peter, I believe it was early in the game. Anyway, he got his bell rung, and it was over with for Miles when it came to moving the ball without the threat of Klein Peter being able to run and throw the ball the way he could. And it was on maybe like a 3rd down run or something like that. I think he got the 1st down, but that was the end of the day for Miles during that particular ball game. So it was nothing good for Miles at that point. Some other teams that I am curious to see what they are going to do is, number 1 is going to be Clark Atlanta. Clark Atlanta, they are predicted to finish number 10 in the conference. As a matter of fact, let me continue going through the rest of the predicted order of finish. You already went 1 through 4. Albany State, Fort Valley, Miles, Tuskegee. Benedict was picked 5, Edgewater 6, Kentucky State 7, Savannah 8, Central State 9, Clark Atlanta 10, Allen 11, Lane is 12, and Morehouse is number 13. Clark Atlanta. Obviously, we know what Clark Atlanta got coming from Columbia, South Carolina with Allen, all those players who came over to Clark Atlanta. Edward Waters is going to be interesting. Edward Waters is 6. The problem with Edward Waters being at 6, the question is, of those top 4 or top 5, who are you moving out to move Edward Waters up? Because I do believe Edward Waters can finish higher than 6, but I'm not sure who I would move down to move Edward Waters up. That's the problem I have with Edward Waters. Central State, second easiest strength of schedule in the conference. Tuskegee, easiest strength of schedule in the conference. Oh, by the way, Fort Valley is the third easiest strength of schedule in the conference. So any of those other teams there that you expect to finish higher than the coaches and the media put them to start the season. But in order for you to move a team up, Ken, you got to move a team down. So you got to give me the full picture when you do that.
So of course I'm moving Benedict down. Benedict is down to 10 in my book. They're down. And in their place, I'm going to move up Savannah State in that 5th spot. You're talking about Savannah State took everybody to the wire. They were up on Benedict for a little while. Then they just fell apart. And I don't know if people saw how them guys were talking at Media Day, but they might need to go see how them guys. I mean, they're hungry. I'm starting to wonder if that article that BJ Jones put out about Keaton probably being on the hot seat at Savannah State kind of motivate him because Kelton. That's right, Kelton. I'm talking about at Clark. But I maybe that motivated them because I had never seen them talk like that before, but they're talking. I know they have a couple of big other guys that have signed on. And you're talking about in this climate now where coaches are having to be a little bit more low key with who they're bringing in because the poachers are looking. They're looking, but I think Savannah State is going to be right that they just have to learn how to finish games. Where they lost by 3 points to Albany State. A late touchdown by us got us over them. Who else? All their games were just right there.
I think 4 of the losses were by a touchdown or less, if I remember right.
Yeah. So and in my opinion, and I'll probably take some heat off of this. I'm gonna move Benedict defensive line out of the equation, right? Because I felt like Benedict's defensive line was elite. But I'm just talking about in the conference. If moving Benedict out, I think Savannah State had the second best defensive line in the conference last season. And at times they look better than Fort Valley's defensive line. And I give Fort Valley the other best defensive line in the conference. So I'm going to move Savannah State up. And as much as I hate to say this, what I'm about to say.
Wait. Hold. I tell you what. Hold that thought.
Okay.
We overdue for a break.
Okay.
All right, y'all. You can hit him on X at D2 HBCU football. He about to say something that's gonna make y'all want to know that Twitter handle. He did already warned y'all, but I'm gonna make y'all wait till after this break. You are watching Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. That's Ken. I'm AD. We'll be back in just a moment.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
As technology continues to bring changes to the world of education, it's time we also reimagine teacher professional development. Gone are the days of one-size-fits-all learning that can only be accessed at a specific time and place. The Stride PD Center is an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that allow educators to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. The best professional development plans are those that include a level of flexibility and choice for educators. Whether you're a teacher, school, or district, visit us today to take charge of your learning.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
We're back here on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. AD Drew here. Ken had to step away for a second before he gives y'all this mic drop moment. So I'm gonna give him a second to get his self together, get his thoughts together before he gives y'all this mic drop moment. Going through the comments right here. Let's see. Other schools, which one has their starting quarterback from last year returning? Obviously, we've already talked about Kelvin Durham returning to Fort Valley State. Clark Atlanta, obviously we know they've got reigning SIAC Player of the Year in David Wright, who came over from Allen to Clark. So he's not returning to his school, but he's a starting quarterback who has started and had success in the conference. He's just trying to do it at another school. Ken, are there any other schools that you could think of that has their quarterback returning this season?
Kentucky State, Perez is coming back. He got injured like midway the season. Cam Ivory played a bit, but Miles has kind of kept that quarterback position kind of quiet. So I think they got one of them other late summer transfers like they did last year. So we'll see when these rosters drop for a couple of these schools. But Perez, so Fort Valley, Kentucky State, of course. Lang, but and Savannah State, because Jayden he's come back for Savannah State.
All right. One other question that I want to get out of here before you this is the one before you do your mic drop, or this may lead you into your mic drop. Anybody on the hot seat in the SIAC? You already dispelled the Kelton rumor at Savannah State. So anybody else who we may want to look at who's possibly on the hot seat?
I think depending on how, I don't think anybody's just on the immediate hot seat, but I think some seats can get warm. I think that Central State seat can get warm.
Porter's only been there. This is what, his second year, third year?
Yeah, so this will be his third year.
Yes.
But the problem is a lot of these, even though we have a lot of new coaches, we have ADs that came in after these coaches, and that dynamic is always interesting to see how that works out. But I think the season will be interesting for Central State. They went 5-5 last year. They ended on a 4-game winning streak. One good thing about him, they was able to keep Davis out of the portal. Davis had gotten the portal, which I think he's one of the best linebackers in the conference. So he came back, decided to finish And I guess I will say that now, now see, you're trying to get me in trouble, but I want to be honest. I'm gonna be honest.
Is this the mic drop you was talking about?
It's gonna lead me into the mic drop.
Okay.
No, there's no seats are hot, but I will say, depending on how this season turns out for the Shed people.
Why did I know you was going there?
Depending on how this season turns out for the Shed people, there'll be questions. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. James is Tuskegee legend. Okay, he's legendary.
Part of some legendary teams.
Yes, he's legendary. So it's not something that will just come, off the hill. But and here's the dangerous part. They go to Edward Waters, right? Miles comes for homecoming. Now, this Miles and Tuskegee rivalry has become a real thing. And that Miles Tuskegee rivalry transcends sports. Whether it's women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, all of them. Like, those games have become really intense. You can't get the coach from Miles. They hire a new coach. You barely beat this new coach, even though James was not the head coach then. He was the offensive coordinator. You can't struggle to beat them your first year there. Then the second year, they convincingly beat you. And then they come back, which possibly could be the first game under lights. And you get, I'm just saying that, hey, people gonna start like, okay, all right, next year now, So is that, and then to lead into the mic drop, I'm gonna have to drop Tuskegee. I'm going to have to drop him, and I hate that.
Be careful. They may not want you to come back down Old Montgomery Road.
I'm gonna have to drop him, and this is why. I'm dropping them
despite the fact that they have Michael King, who is the preseason defensive player of the year. Keep going.
Yes. One, I think they have figured out the quarterback position. But if you look at the recruiting, maybe we haven't. Okay.
Tuskegee has not figured out the quarterback position since came in after Huff.
Jakari.
Why am I drunk? Yeah, since D was there. Jakari Atkins. I don't think they figured out the quarterback position since Atkins was there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think the transfer from Faulkner, Bill, I think he's gonna be good. They went out to Cali and they got a kid at Cali. That's gonna be good. So, but because I got question marks there, I have question mark as who's gonna step up from the wide receiver, because we lost a lot to the portal. Because I know a lot of people, we talk about losing Meeks, but we also lost Petty too to the portal, and then we had a couple that were graduating, right? So we lost a lot for that wide receiver core. Luckily, our running backs are coming back. I think our offensive line is pretty much intact because they were young last year. Not knowing who's going to be the signal caller. And then on defense, we switched it up. We bring in Coach Carter back on defense.
Also a new offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and a new offensive coordinator we got. Yeah.
Comes over from Alabama State over to Tuskegee. Ironically, they were teammates at Tuskegee together. Harry Williams, NFL pedigree. But continue on.
And I'm just, it's a lot of question marks, Hey, I mean,
despite the fact that Tuskegee has the easiest conference schedule percentage-wise, based on last year's win-loss record of anybody in the conference.
So I'm gonna say something about those statistics. Let's go back and look at those games, right? I think we got teams. I think part of this new scheduling format kind of throws some things up in the air. We have Clark late in the season. Clark, if it wasn't for a last-minute touchdown, Clark would have beat us 3-0 last year, right? Like, they gave us everything that we could handle last season. This season, we know they're going to be offensively better. Keaton, when he was at Allen, he comes down to Montgomery. Praise God, we got out of there alive. And when Ruffin was the coach, I mean, when I saw David Rye, I was like, okay, he's as advertised. That was my first time seeing him in person. So I think having them late in the season, I think that Clark will have figured some things out. So I know that schedule looks easy, but you're talking about you play Johnson C. Smith first. Okay, so I'm going to judge a lot by that game. I think I said in my space
Keep
that
in
we
mind,
need to beat them.
Keep in mind, Tuskegee never defeated Flowers.
Right.
In the Red Tails Classic. So
Right.
Coach Flowers going 2-0 at Fort Valley, brings Johnson C. Smith in, looking to go 3-0 and win 3 of the 4 Red Tails Classics that have been played.
And I'm gonna be honest.
Gotta throw that out there for historical
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think we can struggle with Johnson C. Smith and look forward to a great season. So I mean, you got Johnson C. Smith first, then you go to Grambling, then you get a break. I'm glad that there's a week off. After that Grambling game. Then you got Savannah State, a team that I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty high on Savannah State. I'm just pretty high. What Deshaun Mitchell did to us last year with him coming back, the quarterback coming back, the offensive line pretty much in place. They got a few transfers in that I'm really impressed with. Like that's a tough one. So we got some teams that their records were bad last year, but it took everything to beat these teams last season. And it's not like we have a really big, like we have to replace some really solid pieces going into this season. So I don't think this by any means this schedule is a cakewalk for us.
All right. Any last comments that you want to put out on the SIAC before we put a bow on SIAC Media Day? And there was one question in the chat that I want you to kind of comment on as you make those final comments about the SIAC Media Day. Which SIAC coach was the most impressive to you, along with any other closing comments that you want to make?
Keaton by far, because Keaton just has an understanding. Keaton is kind of commanding in how he articulates and how he sees things. When you talk about a guy like Coach Keaton, who has been at places that probably a lot of people don't want to go. I mean, he was at Stillman. Then he goes to Allen, and he kind of builds those programs out. And so I think him articulating what he's trying to do at Clark Atlanta is big. And I think Kentucky State's coach, he understands the task ahead of him, and I think he articulates that well too.
All right. Probably the coach that impressed me the most, talking to him both on camera and off camera, was Byron Brown from Lane. Lane was a team. He's in his 4th year at Lane, and not saying that he's on the hot seat, but it's year 4. Got to make something happen this year. With Lane, they beat Tennessee State. Came within moments of beating UAPB in back-to-back weeks last season. And then they went into conference, kind of laid a little bit of an egg in conference on a team that I was really bullish on last year. But just listen to him speak, him understanding where he made his mistakes at, where they needed to improve, going out and getting the players that he thinks that he needs to win. Of all the coaches I kind of talked to, both on camera and off of camera, I think Brown impressed me. And I can't sleep on Toriano. I cannot sleep on Toriano Morgan, also at Edward Waters, what he's been able to do with the resources that Dr. Faison and the board there at Edward Waters has put in. So those are the two coaches that impressed me the most.
Now, let me say something about Brown. I've made quite a few comments about Brown. And I think what really has to go into the discussion is what success looks like at places. So I see this a lot around just out in the HBCU streets, right? When you look at some of our D1, PW, G5, you know, a Power 5 or higher, a G5 coach, and he may have a losing record to his winning record because success places looks different. I think what success looks like at Lane may not be what success looks like at Albany State. I think especially since we've gone away from the division schedules, when you talk about, I think Coach Brown told us last he had 18 scholarships. That's how he was pimping. And with 18, unlike some of our other schools that even
that's
they don't
half.
have
That's exactly half.
Yeah. Some of the other schools that can use the thing like the Hope Scholarship, you know, like there's other avenues in which coaches can get creative and fill out this roster, right? And so you start
state
talking
schools,
about
you got in-state versus out-of-state fees. You know, they're private schools, so it's one fee.
It's one fee. So when you look at what he's done, I'm like, he's done a hell of a job at Lane. And to go back to that Tennessee State win, you're talking about an SIAC school with 18 scholarships beating an OVC school. And I like to add that part in it. Beating an OVC, which these people talk about their conferences being superior to, you know, the predominant HBCU conferences. But I think that speaks a lot. I don't think the way that the schedule pans out now benefits them because being that they're so limited in the resources and the type of guys they can get, it's hard for them to get through a complete season, especially when they have to go and play those Division I schools that kind of, you know, try to sustain some money games. Yeah, I think that's kind of rough on them because all the coaches will be honest about getting beaten up in those games. The same way the LCS schools, when they go play the FBS schools, they talk about getting, you know, beat down. And then in
talk
Division
about physically, not on the scoreboard.
Yeah, physically. And you start talking about until this season in Division II, it was 10 straight weeks. You know, you had to do that. So when we were in divisions, he really only had five teams he had to worry about to get to a championship, right? You had the teams in your division. Now that we've gone to this, you know, this full schedule, you have 8. You have to worry about playing 8. And I just think that's going to be really hard for a place like Lane until they can find maybe some creative ways to get start funding their athletic programs over there. But I just think success looks different and he should be evaluated upon the place and the resources that he has at Lane. And in my opinion, I think he's done a hell of a job. And I think you'll be hard pressed to find somebody to come in and recruit the level of talent that he has there to come there and play. I mean, because even in the game with Alabama A&M, even though the scoreboard, they got blown, they still threw for over 300 yards. So he has talent. It's just, can they sustain for a whole season, which I think is going to be kind of hard for him up there. But a hell of a coach.
Yeah. That's Kendrick Hooks, y'all. I'm AD Drew. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about the media days that are coming up this week, that being the SWAC and the CIAA. You are watching Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We'll be back in just a moment.
Itchy, squirmy, scratchy, family not getting clean? Get Charmin Ultra Strong.
Go get 'em.
It just cleans better. With a diamond weave texture, your family can use less while still getting clean.
Goodbye, itchy squirm.
Hello, cream bottom.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
At Hampton Law, our primary goal is to provide non-traditional yet effective solutions and redefine the approach to client legal concerns. As your trusted legal advisor, we believe in sophisticated, personalized services that eliminate the confusion and complexity sometimes associated with legal matters. Our high standard for client care and concern, coupled with our extensive legal knowledge and skills, make Hampton Law a resource focused on the protection of the client's interest and overall goals. We value our clients and truly enjoy working with them. Visit thamptonlaw.com to conveniently schedule an appointment online. Tamika Hampton Esquire, 1631 Rock Springs Road, Suite 336, Apopka, Florida, 407-494-1471. thamptonlaw.com.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Coming back on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, AD Drew here along with Kendrick Hooks. Ken, we've got a couple of events happening around HBCU football this week. As you say, it's officially football season once you get to media days. We're going to start off Tuesday with SWAC Media Day. Ken, about 2-3 storylines that you're looking to pick up on coming out of SWAC Media Day.
I think the one that everybody's going to be interested in is that FAMU store. You know.
Boy, did I just toss you a softball or what on that one, man?
I think that one is going to be intriguing. I don't know if I have the same opinion as I feel like sometimes people can just be unfair to coaches, and I mean, whatever Cozy does in this season, it is what it is. Because the coach that went on to Duke, Simmons, he's gone, right? And a lot of that talent that was on there, and it's the nature of the game now, right? But I think Cozy was able to get in there. I've looked at some of the guys that they got in, because I follow recruits heavily, because I look at kids when the D2 teams offer them, and then the FCS schools come in and they, and they offer them. So I was following a couple of guys that he picked up. So I think he's going to be okay. I think the other storyline is this Alabama State's year. A lot of people, they're excited because they think they finally figured out their quarterback position. And I was on a SWAC show one night. I don't know whose show it was, whatever. And they was like, oh, yeah, Tuskegee should be scared. Bama State got a quarterback. And my discussion was we beat them when they had an NFL quarterback in Tavares Jackson. So I'm not concerned either way that it goes. But I think that'll be interesting. But for me, Alabama State is going to be can they replace and replenish and reload on defense? They lost a lot on the defensive side of the ball. And then just that West, that SWAC West is, I feel like
wild West.
It is the wild West. I mean, some people putting Prairie View at the top of it. Some people thinking that Grambling is gonna, be the team to beat. Some people have just written Southern off altogether, But hey, it is for me. When I look at the SWAC, the SWAC goes through a lot of changes as far as like their style of play. I remember at one time people just said the SWAC didn't play defense, because every week you look at their scores, they score them 50, 60 points out there. And then you see when Dion came, you start seeing like another emphasis. Or well, I won't say him. I'll say with McNair and them, like they start playing really solid defense in the SWAC. So I don't know. I think that's one of those things that's just we're gonna have to see. But I am, if I'm rooting for anybody in the SWAC, I'm rooting for Jackson State because they have a Skiga alum. That's their defensive line coach in James. And I think he was great for us. And so I'm rooting for him. I think somewhere down the line that, things go however they go. That man could be Tuskegee's head coach one day. Just a quality guy. So that's all I have for the SWAC.
It's gonna be interesting what offensive play looks like early in the SWAC. Jackson State's the only team that has both its quarterback and its head coach returning. So there's going to be some. Get ready, y'all. There's going to be some musical chairs of quarterbacks early, especially either A, when you're playing those money games, or B, when you're playing those D2 games early in the season, trying to see who's going to be the quarterback as you go into conference play. That's one storyline that I'm looking at. Definitely the West. I mean, there are going to be 4 teams in the West that are going to get first place votes from the media next week. Prairie View, Grambling, Southern, and Alcorn will probably all receive first place votes. As a matter of fact, I think 8 of the 12 teams in the SWAC will receive a first place vote for preseason. Team to watch though, and I hate to say this, is that team on the beach. That being Bethune-Cookman. I think Bethune-Cookman is going to be that shocker team this season. And like you said, is this Alabama State's year? You'll see my prediction on Tuesday, but it very well may be Alabama State's year this particular year. Coming after Tuesday, we go into Wednesday. That's when they have the BAC SWAC press conference, the Cricket BAC SWAC press conference. Florida A&M will take on Norfolk State. They have a press conference Wednesday in Atlanta. Anything interest you as far as that press conference go?
Not really. Just just a Twitter talk. When I look at Norfolk State and you start talking about Odoms and leaving Southern at Norfolk State, kind of the bumps along the way that he's having at Norfolk. For him, I think what a way to kind of cool some things off for him. But it's just gonna be interesting. I'm gonna take a spectator seat when it comes down to all of that.
Also on Wednesday is CIAA Media Day. What are you looking for coming out of CIAA Media Day, Cam?
Jada Byers is coming back to Virginia Union, so I mean, just I think we need to ask Coach in the age of the transfer portal
how he kept him.
How do you keep Byers? I think he should sell that. He should put that in the book and write a book on how do you keep Byers at Virginia Union. I think that's a testament to who Dr. Parker is. Then of course you have Virginia State, right? And so then you have these two big matchups with the SIAC and the CIAA because you have Benedict, and this is the problem with this game. Everybody was excited about this game, first off saying, oh, the SIAC champion and the CIAA champion, they should always meet at the beginning of the year. Yeah, that's good in theory. Then you get a year where Benedict starters, they're up at South Carolina State.
So not only do you have graduation, but you got transfers.
You got graduation, you got transfers, and I don't know. And so sometimes you don't quite get that. And so And so Virginia State and Benedict face off, and then Virginia Union goes to Kentucky State. Now I'm interested in that matchup because that's going to be a clash of styles, right? Byers himself, he's going to get what he's like. You're not stopping Byers. Like that's just, it is what it is. But is Kentucky State ready to make that step on offense that they can, pace or outpace Virginia Union? Because Virginia Union is going to come in. I mean, they are who they are. They like to run the ball. Kentucky State is going to want to throw the ball. So I think that's going to be a good clash of styles in that game. So I expect the CIAA to still be around the same, Fayetteville State. I know there are some people who are expecting Bowie State to make they're ready for that return of Bowie State. And of course the Winston-Salem faithful, they want
to get back in the football business.
Yeah, but they might have to wait until after this season, and they might be able to get their old coach back.
All right. The one question that I have to get answered in the CIAA with St. Augustine dropping football this year due to everything surrounding St. Augustine. And there was an article that came out today. They will have in-person classes this fall. That's the plan, to have in-person classes this fall. But last time that I went through the schedule, me and Brian Fulford, BCSN Sports Wrap, went through the schedule. There are 2 teams that are short one conference game that were not able to pick up that 8th conference game that they were supposed to be playing in St. Augustine. A lot of the other teams were able to pick up and move schedules around to pick up an 8th conference game. How does that affect the standings? Is it going to be like baseball where we go to winning percentages or something along those lines? If you got 2 teams right there battling for that 1 and 2 spot, and one of those teams is short a game because they were supposed to play St. Augustine on the schedule, and I can't remember right now off the top of my head who those 2 teams are who are short a game, but there are 2 teams who are short a game, and you would think it would be simple as those 2 teams figuring out a week to play each other, except those 2 teams already play each other on the schedule. So
I mean, they might have to get like this. I mean, the SIC now we have 13 teams, but we had this problem not long ago when Payne wanted to bring football back, and they dropped it. Stillman dropped. This was before Edward Waters and Allen came, and I think Central State had to play. Central State, maybe Kentucky State had to play each other twice. There were some schools that had to play each other twice in the conference.
Also, that was at one point in time they had to designate, because they couldn't figure it out. They just designated another game. Okay, this is going to count as your extra conference game against a non-conference opponent.
Okay.
Win or lose. I've seen them do that in the SIAC back when Eric Boyle was commissioner. So it's going to be interesting how they're going to solve that problem, especially if it's one of those teams that is in contention. And please, CIAA, don't wait till week 10 to make that announcement, to make that decision, and have everybody, for lack of a better word, pissed off at you. Yeah. But that's one big. I think that's the one big storyline with them going divisionless. Can Fayetteville State still dominate and make it as one of those 2 with the divisionless format this year? But that divisionless format is not what it looks like, because they still use the schedule based on the division format. It's just now everybody's thrown in at 1 through 11 when it comes to conference standings. Or those former North teams, since they still play each other, are they going to knock each other off where you get another team from the South that's going to bump up there? Because the power is in the former North, with the Bowie States, the Virginia Unions, and the Virginia States, and a sneaky Lincoln team that's going to be in there. So it's really going to be interesting to see how that kind of pans out. Last question I have for you, and this kind of goes to all three of these conferences that we talked about thus far. SIAC, Benedict, undefeated in the regular season, in conference, 2 years in a row. SWAC, Jackson State goes undefeated in conference 2 consecutive years. FAMU goes undefeated last year in conference. Last year, Fayetteville State goes undefeated in conference before losing the championship game. And then we all know those big runs with Bowie State went undefeated a couple of years ago in conference. My question to you, Ken, in any of these three conferences that we've talked about thus far, will someone go through the conference undefeated in conference game matchups?
I'll say for the SIAC and SWAC, no. Just impossible. Well, not impossible, but I don't see a team in the SIAC specifically that can go there, because when you start talking about maybe the possibility of a Miles, but then there's still that question mark at quarterback, right? When you look at Fort Valley, although they have Durham coming back, they lost quite a bit on the defensive line. So will that defensive line be as effective, which is what, was one of their calling cards last year, just having that strong defensive line. So I think there are weaknesses on all the teams that maybe week one we look at and we say, okay, yeah, maybe, but just not off preseason. I don't see. And I think in the SWAC, there's too many coaches that, I feel like there's some coaches coaching for their jobs. And when you start coaching for their jobs, there's the famous speech from Kumji, when I won't call this coach's name because he now coaches in the conference, but Alabama State was considering firing him. And we go down there to Turkey Day Classic and we lose it. And Coach Kumji goes in the locker room. He says, they over there coaching for their coach's job. I don't give a blank about their job. And we go out there and they go out there and they win, right? And then he's gone, like the following week. So it's just like that. I think honestly and truthfully, there's a word that Herb always says, parity. There's a lot of parity in the SIAC amongst these teams, because I feel like with the higher divisions recruiting the way they're recruiting now, it opens the door for some high school. If you look at the contributions last year, there were a lot of high school players, true freshmen that came in and they contributed for these teams. And I think it opens the door to a lot of, new talent, new faces in the conference. So I just think that it's going to be a little bit too much parity. And the CIAA, you got Virginia Union and Virginia State, and one of them possibly could, unless somebody comes.
But we know they both can't.
Right. Yeah.
Because they have to play each other.
They have to play each other.
Yes. All right. Last story before we get out of here. Tomorrow, HBCU Swingman Classic 50 NCAA Division I Black College All-Star Baseball players will descend on Globe Life Field, home of World Series champions Texas Rangers, tomorrow that's July 12th, for the second annual HBCU Baseball Classic. The All-Star game, the brainstorm of Baseball Hall of Famer Ken Griffey Jr. is part of a 4-day experience for the players that coincides with Major League Baseball's All-Star Weekend that culminates with Monday, July 15th All-Star Game. The Classic, a collaboration between Griffey, Major League Baseball, the Youth Development Foundation, and MLB's Player Association, is being presented by its main sponsor, T-Mobile. Over 4 days, the players will be provided opportunities to develop leadership and mentorship skills, eventually get a chance to show their skills on the diamond. And this game is going to be MLB Network. It's going to be at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central Time tomorrow. So, any quick comments on the Swingman Classic there, Kendrick?
I'm just glad that that this is taking place. When we start talking about exposure for our athletes, Southern knocks off LSU in baseball this year. So there's quality baseball being played in our FCS HBCU conferences as well as our D2 HBCU conferences, and I'm just glad to see baseball alive and well at our institutions, and just Fort Valley bring baseball back. In a couple of CIAA schools, y'all bring baseball back too. It's one of the sports that I enjoy. Don't know much about it.
MEAC.
Yeah,
please,
yeah,
MEAC.
Yeah. Hey, I think that there's an interest, definitely in the sport. And I just think that and I look at it from a rural area, right? I look at a lot of the high schools that are predominantly Black have kind of like gone away from it, because when you look at some of the makeups of our roster, you don't see a lot of
baseball is the most diverse sport on our campuses.
Yes,
followed probably by softball and volleyball.
Yes,
We'll just say it like that.
Yeah, and I want to see it grow, right? And I would want to see more interest, and that's the largest conversation. We'll have to. That's a whole nother show to talk about my thoughts on baseball and the pool that we can pull players from, and how that's a top to bottom type of discussion. But it's just good that those who are still in it, get a chance to showcase their talents and get those experiences.
And since we don't say it, shout out to Minority Baseball Prospects. You go catch them on YouTube, MVP TV. CEO Alex Weiss, former Tuskegee head baseball coach Reggie Hollins, and all those guys over there for promoting baseball on a daily with these we see these classics like this, but they're out here on the grind every day helping inner city kids and people who look like you, who look like me, with baseball. Ken, any final comments before we pick up the show and get out of here?
No, this message right here is directly for Yard Talk. Yard Talk tweeted me today and said that Grambling Tuskegee game is going to be at nighttime. And I'm so glad. And I told her that it's going to be Tuskegee by 3 and by 4 if they make us mad. So I just wanted to just shout her out to know that they should have known better than to bring us there at nighttime.
Let's just hope that make sure you got your headlights on your car. Make sure they are shining bright so we can make sure we get out of town once we whoop that Grambling and Kendrick. But sometime before that game, we're gonna have to come back on. We're gonna have to talk about the history and the synergy between Tuskegee and Grambling. There's a lot of history that, unless you've been a part of it, that you don't understand how these two institutions are tied in together. And I'm not talking about on the gridiron, everybody. These two institutions are tied in together, and the two towns, Tuskegee, Alabama, and Grambling, Louisiana, are tied in more than a lot of you guys think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that game will be big, and I think that's something that I'm gonna have to start pushing that in the alumni chapters, and that game should be big, and I think it should start now, pushing that to be the game. Forget that it's D2, D1. I think a lot can be accomplished in that game, in honoring people who are the reason that these institutions are what they are today.
Yeah, it sounds like we may need to co-author a article on this stuff together, man. So
absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure to share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am AD Drew, sitting in for the Dean of HBCU Sports, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, coming from inside the lab, and the College of HBCU Sports, with my co-host today, Mr. Kendrick Hooks. Kendrick, tell everybody where they can follow you at on Twitter and any other social media platforms.
So on Twitter, you can follow me at D2HBCU Football. On any other sites, I'm Skegee Historian. That's SKEGEE Historian. On Instagram, TikTok. And basically those just focus around history. And on D2HBCU Football, we talk about the SIAC primarily, but we get into some other conferences as well.
I see Chuck Hunt knows a little bit of that history that we are talking about right there. Him from being right up the road in Monroe, Louisiana.
Absolutely.
See who else? Yeah, this Chuck knowing his history. Yeah, Chuck up there showing off, man. Don't do that, Chuck. Save it for the show, man. All right. Again, we thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab each and every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern. We will not be coming to you next Tuesday evening as we have SWAC Media Day, but we will be coming to you live from SWAC Media Day during the day. I believe that's going to kick off about 10 or 11 o'clock Eastern. So, and that'll be the BCSN Game Time Show, which will be a collaboration. BCSN Sports Rap, the ONG Strike Zone, the Carlos Brown Show, and Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We'll collaborate to get there together and bring you coverage of SWAC Media Day. You can follow me on Twitter, everybody. That's at BCSN Drew, at BCSN DREW. You can catch me and my partner Brian Full for each and every Sunday night right here on the Black College Sports Network. The BCSN Sports Wrap beginning at 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central, as we talk about the latest and the greatest news, debate, and dialogue throughout HBCU sports. We look forward to next week as we will discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow Dr. Kenyatta Cavil on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Facebook. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on YouTube. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Do you remember how to get up out of here? Or do I got to do the whole thing, Ken? You probably don't. I got it today. Course, lecture, dismiss. Travel light, everybody. We'll see you next week.